Hello everybody, welcome to cxo-cockpit. 5 steps to move from Excel to digital financial reporting. Okay, so to introduce myself, my name is Alfonso, responsible for new business and existing customers across the UK and Ireland and the Nordics region. However, I'm going to take you through this presentation today, including the demonstration as well. So approximately we're going to take about 45 minutes for the webinar. I would encourage you to enter some questions into the chat box and I will try to take those at the end. I will then talk about Excel. Why do we love Excel in terms of the Office of Finance? And then we're going to look at the 5 key steps to moving from Excel to a digital reporting platform. I'm then going to give you a live demonstration of a small piece that I've developed. So first of all, the start of our presentation is to look at the financial statement. Typically, why do we use Excel in this particular process? So it's easy to grab an Excel spreadsheet. We can bring in data from multiple data sources. Examples of those multiple data sources appear on the left-hand side of the screen. Those can include ERP systems, planning systems, even Excel spreadsheets themselves of keeping data that's non-financial. Typically, what are we bringing into that Excel sheet? Well, we could be bringing in financial data, as I've indicated here. Consolidated data, actuals, maybe variance data, etc. And also then there could be even commentary or narrative entered into Excel sheets. You may be using an Excel to do simple calculations. You may be doing it to do complex work within the Office of Finance. But it is the essential tool that all organizations reach for. When thinking about month-end reporting though, Excel tends to be used as an add-in to some of the solutions on the left-hand side of the screen. But the problems are compounded when Excel is used by many people in an organization, because we tend to argue about which is the correct data that we should be focusing on. So let's look at some of those sort of steps to move from Excel to digital reporting. So we've identified in some research that we've done that there are 5 areas that we need to consider. First of all, we need to identify that there is a problem. Secondly, we need to look at what are the change aspects or decisions to change. Then we need to generate a list of criteria for identifying solutions out in a marketplace, for example, software. We need to also look for what are the benefits the organization is hoping to achieve. And then we also need to think about how do we implement such a system. So let's go through each of these in just a little bit more detail. So step 1, problem identification. So there tends to be quite a lot of very positive things when using Excel, but equally there are lots of challenges. And here we've gathered together a list of typical negative issues associated with using Excel for any finance-related tasks. Of course, when you think about month-end reporting, you're doing it on a regular basis, therefore it becomes very repetitive. It's very manual. Entering calculations can be very easy to do, but also when you're bringing in new data, that repetitive nature, the potential for error is very high. It's very static views within an Excel spreadsheet, not interactive. Obviously, I'm not going to go through all of these. I'm just pulling out a couple of them as key examples. Of course, are you actually viewing the latest data in the Excel spreadsheet? When was the last time you took the data from the underlying source system and refreshed it? You may be circulating that within your organization, and therefore, how is that controlled in terms of governance? So there are many areas where problems occur associated with the use of Excel. So then we need to think about, well, okay, if we accept that there are many sort of challenges associated with Excel, so we're not advocating to remove it completely, but there needs to be some decision to actually say, I need to change and do something differently. So am I the only person with this issue? And by attending such a webinar as today, you're indicating that you recognize potentially there are some challenges with using Excel, and therefore, you're not the only person who has considered, is there a better way of doing some of these finance related tasks? I do have an example of those towards the end of the webinar, which I'm going to bring to life and share with you in a demo. Within your organization, does this process affect others within the organization? Are you alone? So can you talk to others? Can you get a gathering of people to actually say, can we improve upon what we're doing and do it better? Can I influence others in my organization to change? So if we all recognize that there are some challenges, do I need a senior sponsor to help me, recognizing that there's got to be a better way? Can we build a business case? Can I gain a budget if I need to put something in place? So these are the sort of things that we need to think about when thinking about changing. So the third step is to think about, well, okay, I need to generate a list of requirements. So what is it I'm trying to achieve? What is it I want from, let's say, a piece of software to deliver against my objectives? And here again, we've generated a list of areas that we think may be helpful to yourselves. Now, if you wish, at the end of the webinar, I'm more than happy to share this presentation so you can use this list as a starting point for gathering your own criteria. But some of the things here are associated with the challenges that we saw a little bit earlier. So if you just take the first one, for example, connect to my key finance source. So that could be the planning system where you have your accounts payable, your actuals, your budget, your forecast. I would want to be able to connect to that because that's where my data is. So maybe that is a key criteria for your individual system. You also want to be able to connect to where you're storing your non-financial data, so your key performance information related to non-financial data. Could be HR data, could be health and safety data, and so on. You want to also think about whether the system that you intend to use, if you look at the fourth one down, ability to enter calculations. My example in a few moments will take you through how our system can actually handle creating calculations. You want to be able to add commentary or narrative, so you want to not only have the data, but to be able to explain, why is there a variance? It doesn't need to be just a cell note, but if you're thinking about multiple entities within an organization, you might have a hierarchy of many different divisions, and you wish to collect commentary from many different levels within the organization and have those rolled up into your group level view. So therefore, that could be a key criteria for the software vendor that you're thinking about. And you can see here, collaborating with colleagues, the ability to share your Excel spreadsheet reproduction within a software environment and collaborate with other colleagues. Maybe that's a criteria as well. Of course, mobile. We're all moving into the mobile age of consuming the data, not just on our desktop, but in an iPad, Android. Whilst we're on the move, we want that same experience. So again, that needs to be key. And of course, from a finance perspective, I think probably the most important one is being owned and managed by finance folk and not necessarily by IT. So then simplicity of administrating the software, for me, I think is the number one aspect of this particular list. So let's look at the benefits. What are we trying to achieve with any kind of solution? So we need to think about the business benefits. So some examples are on the screen, but they will be very different to different organizations. So for example, you may be trying to improve the month-end close. In my example here, I'm suggesting I'd like to move from a working day 14 to a working day 5? Well, is it because Excel and the use of Excel is slowing you down in your current process, therefore it's inefficient, and therefore the business benefits you seek in a solution by assisting in that Excel process actually achieves a quicker month-end process. Therefore, the decisions can be taken a week, maybe 2 weeks in advance of where they were previously. You may be looking to reduce some sort of finance headcount. So from a CFO's perspective, or head of finance or finance director, maybe you're thinking about looking at efficiencies within the organization and how can you do that. This could be a way of actually identifying those. You may have identified many times when calculations have been noticed by the senior management team within financial statements, and you want to reduce those particular errors within your organization. There have been many times when I've sat in meetings, and I'm sure you guys have too, where we argue about the actual number itself. So we need to have a single version of the truth, and by removing a lot of the Excel documents that are floating around within an organization and agreeing on a process and an agreed system of work, then we know exactly which is the true number, and we can all then make decisions against that. So these are just some examples of benefits that your organization may seek when thinking about this particular topic. And step number 5 is then implementation. So we need to think about how we actually build the project. You obviously want it to be up and running as quickly as possible. So most folk have witnessed being involved in projects that take 6 months and longer. Well, we're suggesting that you need to be thinking about a project needs to be less than 1 month to be up and running, to keep momentum going, and that can be a small sprint, maybe stage 1 of the project, but essentially you want to have it up and running as fast as possible. The second one, again, I reiterate what I said a little bit earlier on, is about finance owning the software, finance being responsible for administration, not IT. Of course, the software needs to be probably authorized originally by IT and ensure that it complies with all of the IT rules and regulations within your organization, but you want to maintain control yourselves in order to change it as you see fit. You want to transfer the knowledge from the software vendor to yourselves so that you become self-reliant and not rely on external consultants to manage the solution itself. So let's take an example of how we can go through those 5 steps. I'd like to show an example here of Excel on the left-hand side, where we've got printed out a financial statement and how we can take that into the world of digital reporting. So what I'm going to show you now is a typical Excel example, group level view within my company. I'm sharing the Excel spreadsheet on the screen now. So what we can see is on the left-hand side, we've got a column of accounts, net sales, gross margin, EBIT, EBITDA, EBIT, net profit, etc. on the left-hand side. And then the columns, we're actually looking at USA actuals, September 2016. Then we've got Europe, South America, the SA, Asia, and then we have the totals. We can see the total actual, the total budget, and we can also see the variance as well. It's a typical, very straightforward tabular format of a profit and loss statement that you guys are typically used to seeing. Now, to build up this particular view of these 4 regions within my fictitious company, we need to think about how this is actually built up. And if you then break down the 4 regions, we've actually got 10 individual subsidiaries below it. So here we will have, in one of the regions for the USA, we've got East region and West region that makes up the USA. So therefore there will be a spreadsheet for that particular data. Then you would have the European region, and you can see here in Europe, in my example, I have 2 countries, Italy and United Kingdom, and again a spreadsheet with all the data associated with that particular region. And then the same goes for South America. We have 3 individual countries, Brazil, Mexico and Argentina, again with the data associated here. And finally, the 4th region, which is the Asia region with 3 individual countries in my example, Japan, Singapore and China. So you can see 4 Excel spreadsheets here that make up that group 1 in the previous slide. What I want to do is, now that I've explained there, is I want to show you just simply adding a calculation to the spreadsheet. So essentially here is the group level overview again. What I wish to do is just very simply add up and create a total for total depreciation and amortization expense, and create a new column, a new row, which is the total depreciation and amortization. And you can see that's been added into this Excel spreadsheet here. Now in the world of Excel, I would be adding it at the group level, but also I would be inserting that column and doing that very simple addition calculation in all of the previous 4 regions. That would essentially mean 15 adjustments just to make that one simple calculation. And I've just boiled it down to one simple calculation for now, which is something that we're all very familiar with. So let's have a look at how we could do that within cxo-cockpit and how we can replicate that and still give the finance owner the power of Excel within cxo. So just bear with me one second while I get onto the demonstration model. So I'm just signing into cxo-cockpit. Okay, so I've signed into cxo-cockpit. I'm going to show you the P&L that we've added to cxo-cockpit. It's now visible on the screen. We can see here profit and loss by entity. I'm looking at the group level, Communications Inc. We can see on the left hand side net sales, gross margin, EBITDA, total depreciation, amortization expense, EBIT, and so on. So this is the same Excel spreadsheet. I'm looking at actuals. Here is the United States, here is Europe, South America and Asia. We've got the group total, we've got the budget and the variance. So it's exactly the same sheet. The only difference in cxo-cockpit is if I wanted to, I can drop down and look at the levels below. So here I can actually switch to the entities below and look at the data, maybe for instance by South America. So here is one of those sheets, same accounts on the left hand side. I'm now looking at South America, as you can see here, and here are the 3 countries. So it's the same data that we have as I showed you in the Excel spreadsheet. So that's been entered into cxo-cockpit. Now, as per my example, what I'd like to do is add a simple calculation to add these 2 up. So we do this by going to the cxo designer. So I'm going to go to the back end of the solution. And in the back end of the solution, I'm able to find the actual report itself. And then what I would like to do is then add the calculation. So here is the actual report in the center of the screen. And at the bottom of the screen, I have all of the accounts listed with all the different kinds of calculations and drill paths, etc. So what I first of all need to do is I need to add a new item, as you see me here clicking onto the item. And that new item is going to appear at the bottom of the list. It's just given a title of EBITDA for the moment. But what I wish to do is bring this one to row 17, as you can see here. So, and you can see it change on the actual dashboard in the center here each time. So the first thing I am going to do is give it a title. So let's just change this title here, and we'll call it total depreciation. We'll just give it a full stop plus Amortization EXP, full stop, so we can see here, so it fits on nicely. Let me just save that. And straight away you can see I have a title here. What I need to do now is just give it the correct account that we're going to do. So it's the operating expenses account. So we're going to choose the account. And then I go to the actual formula itself. So here is where we enter the Excel-like formula. Just double click into the formula row. I'm presenting with a pop-up box which gives me a number of different formulas available to myself. So the first thing I'm going to do is I want to do a summation, and then it's asking me essentially what is value 1, and I just need to find the first value, which as we know is the total depreciation. The second value is going to be the amortization expense, and then I'm going to save it. It's as simple as that, and we can actually see the formula created in the actual cells here in front of us. On the screen we can see that it's already added these together, so we've got total depreciation, amortization. You can see 306 is adding these two up straight away. I just want to make this into a total, so we do that by changing the format. It's currently just on a default. I want to put a total in here, so it's just default total. Now we'll just put it into bold and give me a line, as you can see here. As soon as I've done that, I can then go back to the front end of cxo-cockpit, and we can see straight away I'm back into the front end, the visible side of cxo-cockpit. I'm looking at the same level, entity, the group level, Common Communications Inc. Here is the total calculation that's been added. So it's now applicable not just at the entity of the group level, but if I go back to, for instance, with the South America one that I showed you a little bit earlier on, straight away it's available here, total depreciation here. It's already done the calculation straight away. So that's how simple it is to add calculations into cxo-cockpit. But what I'd like to do is also then share with you that as a user, you're able to, within our solution here, is maybe share that with other users. So what I would like to do is add this to a report pack. Now in our solution, we actually call this a storyboard, and I'm hovering over the storyboard feature now. So we can see here, maintain storyboards. I'm going to create a new storyboard in order to share this with. So let's just call it Excel-like calculation presentation, so we can see it clearly. And here is the storyboard I've created. We can see that there's nothing added to it so far. So the first thing I need to do is then add this particular storyboard, a dashboard to the storyboard. And I do so by clicking on this star button that you can see me hovering over now, which is the add to storyboard. So I just decide on which storyboard do I wish to add it to. And we can see the one I've just created, the Excel-like calculation. It asks me then when do I need to insert it. Well, there's only one within this particular storyboard, so it'll be the first one that I add. But just to add another one to it, so we can see a couple of other items within the solution as well. So here I have, let's do a profit and loss waterfall. And let's add this one to that storyboard too. So again, add to storyboard, choose the storyboard that I wish to add it to, the Excel-like calculation. Where would I wish to add it? Let's add it after the first page. Add the page, and now we can see that there are actually two in my storyboard that I've created today. So Excel-like calculation now has the profit and loss by entity with the calculation that I added, and that second profit and loss waterfall chart. Now what I can do is share it with others. So I just come up to the share button, and then it allows me to decide on which users within my organization I wish to share it with. So I'm going to share it with Antonio from Europe. I'm giving him viewer access. I could also give him editing access, or he can take over ownership of it if I wanted to. But let's just give him viewing access only. I can add other users if I wish, but for now let's just do one individual user. Save the changes, and you can see in the bottom of the screen it says that the permissions have been successfully added. So let me close this down. I'm currently signed in as myself. You can see at the top of the screen. I'm going to sign out and sign in as Antonio. So let's see what it would look like under his user profile. So I'm signed in now as Antonio. We can see the avatar at the top of the screen. For those who are very keen-eyed, you will have noticed that also the menus at the top of the screen, he only has access to a smaller number of reports because I'm at the group level originally and he's one of the European financial controllers. You'll also notice that straight away the entity that he is visible is only Europe and the countries that he's responsible for. So yes, from a security perspective, I'm creating one report in the solution, one Excel sheet, and I'm distributing it to many users, but those users will only view what they have authority to see. So these are all the reports he can see within the solution. But if you remember, I've actually shared something with him, and we know it's been shared because he's got a notification of this little bell at the top of the screen indicating that I've presented and shared with him the Excel-like calculation. So I can just click on this notification. Straight away, it will bring up the storyboard menu. We can see that he has access to two storyboards, one called a cost center monthly report and also the Excel-like calculation. So here is the Excel-like calculation. He can then just play it, run the storyboard and view it in the interactive mode, similar to the way that I did a couple of moments ago. So here is the profit and loss by entity. He can only see it by Europe. He can't go any higher because he's at the European level. But you can see the calculation that's in here as it was a little bit earlier on. He can do analysis by looking back into different days, different years. He can even drill down. So here he wishes to have a look at the net sales and how they're made up. Well, you can see here how they're made up. Maybe he wants to explore a little bit more about direct costs. He can look at that information too. You can scroll to the second one in this report chart by clicking on this play functionality here. And here is the waterfall chart. He can look at the details of this information. He can zoom into the data. Maybe he wishes to look at the performance of Italy sales. And you can see on the right hand side is now looking at periodic. Maybe it wishes to look at it year to date. The data will interactively change because it's connected to the underlying system, which is one of the criteria that we talked about as part of those step process. So I'm going to stop at this point, go back to the presentation, and let's see if there are any questions that anybody has they wish for me to answer. So just bear with me 1 second. I'm just going to open up the control panel. Let's see if there are any questions. Okay, the first question that's coming up is does cxo-cockpit connect to which systems does cxo-cockpit connect to? So the answer to that question, there is a list on our website, but some examples of those systems that we connect to include HFM, Oracle HFM, Oracle Essbase. In the SAP world, we connect to SAP BPC and SAP BW. We connect to OneStream, Tagetik, and IBM. But there's a full list on our website which I can share with the audience after the webinar is completed. Okay, let me come back to the questions, see if there's anything else. Okay, so that's the only question that's come through. Let me see if there are any others. No, okay, so what I'll do then is just I'm going to end the webinar today. I'd like to thank everybody for their attention. If they wish to see a deeper a demonstration of the solution, including more features and functionality that we have to offer. Today we've just focused on doing a calculation, but you can see how easy it is to do that within cxo-cockpit. My contact details are on the screen. I'd be happy to receive any replies direct from yourselves. Thank you very much, and goodbye.